Hello and welcome, I'm Oles Gerjuk and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky signed the law on concession, which stipulates conditions for attracting private capital to manage the state property. What are the peculiarities of the new law and what opportunities will it bring to Ukraine? To answer these questions, we're joined in the studio today by Dmytro Romanovych, Deputy Minister of Economic Development, Trade and Agriculture of Ukraine. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, and thank you for coming today. Let's put it in simple words first. What does concession mean? Because I think that this is a pretty new thing for Ukrainians and maybe for our international audience as well. And how does it differ from the usual long-term lease?
Okay, probably legally it's incorrect, but it's a very upgraded version of lease. And why I'm saying so, because the objects that will be under concession will stay in the state ownership or municipal ownership, depending on who is owned this property. The concession law, sorry, not law, the concession itself, mean that the investor will come and will build something, and this upgraded object, he will be using it for some time that is defined in the agreement. And then after the end of this process, he will return this improved already object to the ownership of the government. And it could be very different kind of objects, roads, ports, seaports, hospitals, culture objects, and very different kind of object that provide the publicly important goods or services.
Mm-hmm. But you mentioned that the concessionaire can probably win a land and then build something that is going to be the property of the state still, but basically used by the concessionaire. But what about the state entities? Do they go under concession procedure or not?
The concession concerns not the legal entities like enterprises, etc. It usually means that some assets that can be owned by the state-owned enterprises or the government directly will be concessed, let's say.
Or resources also.
So right now, in Ukraine, there are 2 pilot projects already on concessions in the seaports, in Kherson and Olvia ports. And there are parts of this infrastructure that is leased to the investor, and they do the improvements there and then operate and share and actually take the operational risk on them. Yeah,
yeah, before we discuss the Olvia and Kherson seaports, let's maybe get in depth of this issue of concession. Maybe let's discuss some peculiarities of the law. So I remember when Mark Magaletsky, deputy chairperson of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development in Ukraine, said a phrase, I have a quote, one of the problems that existed until recently was that there was a lot of talk about the need to attract private investments, but there was a limited number of mechanisms and favorable models for it. So, as we understand now, as you mentioned, that probably now the new law is facilitating the attraction of this private equity. But how exactly? So what are all these mechanisms to attract these private equity?
Yeah, absolutely right. So we worked with the EBRD, which Mark represents, and he was our big partner and supporter in this process. So we worked with the EBRD, IFC, and other IFIs, international financial organizations, to make this law so-called bankable. For them be able to finance such kind of projects, because usually they are big, they are long term, and not so much investors has such kind of money to put in and then operate. So it requires big, cheap, and long financial resources, and EBRD and IFC are the providers of such kind of investments. So we work together with experts from these organizations to ensure that under this law they will be able to provide financing. And this is one kind of proof on our law that now this is the workable instrument. Of course, we have to work on this law, and maybe it will require some amendments when we'll see the practice, and we are ready for this. So, yeah, I would say that now we send the invitation ticket for the investors worldwide and invited to them. There is still some work on the implementation of the law on the level of the sub-laws that CABMIN should make some work to create criteria, etc., decrease orders to make it fully operational in legal terms. But we are working on it already. But at the same time, we already started gathering the project ideas for what kind of project can be the best to start with.
So what kind of projects are the best to start with? What sort of ideas have you gathered so far?
Actually, we had a event on Wednesday, I believe, when the IFC experts came, and there was a number, I believe, around 20 project ideas that was presented to the experts exactly for this point, to assess what is more relevant right now, what is more perspective in financial terms, in structuring terms, etc. So for now, we are not announcing the result because we are still in the process, but the project was from the very different sphere, from energy sector to several projects from healthcare sector, some things in IT, and also in infrastructure. So it's a rather big variety of possible variants.
And all these objects from these different sectors can go under the concession.
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting to monitor the evolution of this procedure. But let's explain the audience what is the procedure for selecting this concessioner, and how does the concessioner benefit? How does the state benefit?
I mean, it's a competition. It's a pretty structured, but more or less usual competition. The authority who want to make a concession has some object, is preparing the economic assessment and the economic proof of the project, and then it's a proof on the level of the CABMIN that the government want and support this project, and then start the competition. So how much, and the investors compete on how much they will pay, actually. So it's a more or less usual procedure. One of the innovation for in the concession law was that we are ensuring the transparency of this process by using Prozora kind electronic instrument for this.
The software,
Prozora
software.
To be absolutely sure that in the end the results will be transparent and reliable.
So the call can be launched on Prozora, but then as it was published in media, there is some certain commission that is going to assess all the participants, all the applicants, and select the winner. Whom will it be, this commission, and how can we be assured that this commission can be fully politically and economically independent?
It will be a variety of the stakeholders, mostly government, and it's a matter of how to say. It's always a more or less political decision on making the decision we are going into the project or not. But what are they assessing? They are assessing the economic impact of the project, and it's a pretty well defined what should be in this assessment, in this report, and how we should assess it. And then you are just checking, is it comply or not comply with the requirement that what is initially set up, the offer of the investor. So I mean, it's a world standard for such kind of complex project like concession is. It's not just buying, I mean, some goods like I don't know, paper or water or whatever. So it's a pretty complex thing that should be very well analyzed and very well prepared to be able to go for concession. Yeah.
So you're saying that this commission will assess the economical impact of the potential project. What about the ecological impact? Because now this aspect is being debated over in media, that concessionaire may win a project, but after this business person or company is required to provide the state or the authority with the assessment of its production influence on the environment. So what sort of sense does it make, and why wouldn't the state include maybe ecologists on the stage of submitting the applications?
I mean, it is pretty standard procedure for the, let's say, Europe. When you're making the project, during the project, you are sending the necessary papers and analysis to the different regulators, including the ecological assessment. So to make it before the competition, it will make too much burden on the investor. It will be, I mean, 10 participants. Each of them should make some ecological assessment. Why you should do this? When the winner is already selected and he is proposing something, then you do this assessment. So it just to make it easier to enter, because Ukrainian problem is not that we don't have, I mean, projects that is attractive. The key problem right now is to make investor come to Ukraine and participate. So we're making it easier for them to participate in such kinds, to make a competition on this and to increase the price, so-called price for the concession on this competition on this competition.
But what if ecological assessment might be too harmful?
Then the project
does it bear a threat that the project is losing the project?
Yeah, then the project will not happen. And yeah. Okay, so how this ecological assessment works? So the person, I mean legal person who want to make the project, making their assessment, sending to the regulator that is assessing it, and then it provides the recommendation how to change it to decrease the possible harm, and then you can amend your project and send it one more time, and it's normal. It's absolutely normal situation, normal practice.
What if a concessionaire doesn't go by the rules? Is it possible to change somehow the contract, to add some new provisions into it, or maybe to terminate it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's possible. So we can. But if you are in the middle of the project, and I have to remind that concession is usually taken when on the object that is that is providing some publicly important good, socially important good. So like hospital, yeah. That is providing some diagnostic or other kind of services, and if the investor don't want to continue, let's say, there is a mechanism to change the concessionaire through the competition again, etc. But you should have this opportunity to change the concessionaire.
So this is what you meant about the upgraded lease.
Yes, no, but in lease you also can have such kind of changes. Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, most of those interested in concession are probably foreign companies, foreign investors. Are you aware of their assessment of this new law as of now?
So first of all, we are talking not only about foreign investors. So because Ukrainian investors are as much eligible for concession as the foreign investors.
Yeah, but since we cover
traditionally, I would say traditionally, we think that foreign investors are more demanding for the rules and for the procedures, how they're structured, because they're used to the rules they have in the other countries, and that's why it could be, I mean, uncomfortable for them to to use the other kind of rule. That's why we are aligning it to the best practices we have and attracted EBRD and the FC and other experts to align it actually with the best practice. So your question is, are we sure about?
No. What is the feedback from the foreigners about this stuff? Because Ukraine has been craving to get the interest, to get the attention,
absolutely,
and to become more attractive for the foreign investments.
The foreign investors are kind of looking at the reaction of the players, actors who is in Ukraine, and IFC and EBRD present in Ukraine, and they are one of the biggest providers of the financing in the world for such kind of projects. And that's why the proof from the IFC and EBRD, and they are working with us, kind of enough. I would believe that it's enough. We still need promotion. We still need to say a lot about that this is the open opportunity right now. But this confirmation from such kind of IFIs is already a good sign for us. And we had already a lot of talks about with some potential investors or some potential participants of such kind of contests for the concession, and what they are asking is what IFC and EBRD thinks, and they when coming they always meet them to consult how it's aligned. So yeah, I believe we are fine right now. So,
so this is a sign that Ukraine is a reliable partner.
I have to say that it's still work to be done. I mean, in terms of implementation, but we are in good shape right now. So after 3 years of preparation of this law, so we finally have it adopted and already acting. And we are happy about it, but even more work to be done right now.
This is a good note, a good and positive note to conclude on. Thank you so much for your comments, and thank you for being a guest today in the studio.
Thank you very much.
That was Dmytro Romanovych, Deputy Minister of Economic Development, Trade and Agriculture of Ukraine. Thank you for watching Head to Head, and stay tuned for more with UATV.